But then I should try to do a English accent, and so I'm gonna try that regularly. All right, that's pretty much it. Okay, so let's go on to CBT therapy. All right, so no one should watch this, but I'm trying to practice an English accent. You shouldn't watch this. This is very self-indulgent. All right, so English accent things are soften the T, especially in the middle of the word, or in the word. So if I say better, instead of saying better, it should be better. If I say H, if you say behind, it's behind. Behind me butter. I got the butter, it's behind the refrigerator. And behave. How should I behave? How should I behave when me butter is behind the refrigerator? How should I behave when me butter is behind the refrigerator? Yeah, okay. Think. I think I left the butter behind the refrigerator. So instead of think, they say think. Cat. Instead of cat, it's a bit more like caught. Cat. If they say apple, it's a bit more like apple. It's not entirely like a caught, but instead of cat, it's more like caught. Me cat is behind the refrigerator. It's eating the butter. And I'm trying to use an English accent on Omegle, but it's taking a bit of practice. It is. I becomes oi. Instead of saying I, they say oi. Okay, so L at the end of the word becomes W. So apple becomes apple. Pole becomes W. Pole. Apple. What's a word that ends with L? Satchel. So I'm gonna try to remember that is. So if you're trying to do a Cockney British accent, you want to soften the L at the end of a word. If you say apple, it might sound more like apple.
You're very close. That's a great observation about a key phonetic feature of...
Alright, in a Cockney accent, the L sound at the end of a word, the dark L, is often replaced by a vowel sound, specifically a sound similar to an O or W. This is a phenomenon linguists call L vocalization. So when a Cockney speaker says apple, it might sound like apple, O. So L sounds like O generally.
That's a very common and
the L sounds like O or W when it appears at the end of a syllable. So L at the end of a word sounds like O or O and W mix.
That's an excellent way to think about it.
Okay. Alright, so I'll just try to remember that. Is L at the end of a word sounds like O and W. Nobody's listening, right? Nobody's listening, but I have this, I'm all about like mindfulness. Get the point. There's a voice, nobody's watching this, right? But just for the record, there's a voice in my head right now that's I'm imagining in my head that my jiu-jitsu coach would be shaking his head, looking at my life. My jiu-jitsu coach, he's like a typical man with like 7 kids and like a job and stuff like that. And he wants, I'm imagining this. I go to this gym. I'm trying to learn to be like a tougher, less wimpy guy. So there's this guy at our jiu-jitsu gym who's like the coach, and he's like a traditional man. He does the tough stuff. He gets the resources, and he has 7 kids, and he brings home the bacon and stuff. And so he's basically like, I don't know, in my head I imagine that he's like helping these kind of sissy guys try to be more manly. And so get the point, Sean. basically I just imagine every time, throughout, when I go to jiu-jitsu regularly, when I'm doing my lifestyle, my typical lifestyle like this, I imagine my jiu-jitsu coach in my head being like, you're doing things wrong, dude. Like, this is all silly. Like, you're just doing all this internet, like, you're not being a man. You gotta get out there. You gotta fucking get a job. You gotta fucking, like Jordan Peterson, they say, like, you gotta go get resources and you gotta take on a bitch and you gotta make babies and fucking, and be like a man who raises kids, and you can socialize in your job or something like that. Get the point. I don't make a good man. I basically have to realize, like, people are very different, and I basically, if I'm really honest, I don't really, like, I'm just trying to adjust this thing in my head. I like sex, like when I was in my 20s, I liked having, like, flings with, like, pretty chicks. Like, I like the idea of, like, sex with chicks. Great, sounds great. All the rest of the stuff, like, like, having kids, going to dinner parties, like, taking kids to the doctor, arranging play dates, going to t-ball games, I'm not really good at any of that. Like, basically, I'm thinking there's a little voice in my head that says, like, Sean, are you going to be okay doing this? Like, if you just do this for the remainder of your life, are you going to be okay? Yeah, I think that's kind of what I generally want to do, is I just want to kind of have fun and just do, like, little games and live off the fumes of my parents' wealth. Now, I don't want to talk about this a lot, but the internet people, they basically say that this is happening across America. A lot of people are basically just giving up at trying to have, like, a job or trying to get married. But at least in my life, I really wouldn't make a good dad if I really think about it. Like, I really am, like, a kind of a sissy guy, in the sense that, like, most of the functional adult, like, real heavy shit, like taking kids to the doctor and, like, dealing with, like, real life and death of, like, a real child, which I wouldn't be able to handle that, if I'm really honest. If God was looking to my soul, if God said, do you think you can handle, like, real adult shit? Maybe if I was forced to do it, I might be able to do it, but I don't really want to do it. I think, like, basically, if my brother had a kid, I don't really want it. The Richards DNA will go on without me. I'm already kind of too old to really have kids. But really, like, if I can kind of just get away with living like a kid for the rest of my life, that's preferable. So what's the point? I'm trying to justify my lifestyle in my head and just think, like, let me just play games. I'm basically asking myself, like, if I go to the end of my life and I never have kids, I'm gonna feel like I failed as a human. I never had kids. No, I really just want to basically live like a kid, and I'm just basically going to tell myself that there was this window of time after puberty and until about 40 when there was, like, the breeding phase. Like, are you going to have kids? Are you going to get married? And I made it through that period without having any kids, and now it's kind of like I just want to kind of, like, live like a kid. All right, what's the point? I just have to, like, tell myself that. Otherwise, I'm going to feel like a failure of a mammal. You didn't do it, Sean. You didn't have to do your mammal job. I wouldn't be good at it. I'm really not. Nobody cares. I'm not watching this, but I'm basically rationalizing this in my head. I'm not gay. Like, I'm not into men, but I really don't make, like, a good man with, like, a woman. Even when I was with I don't play the role of, like, a man being like, come on, woman, I'm gonna get the resources. I'm gonna keep you sheltered, and let's do the adult responsibility shit. Like, I'm really not. I don't. That stuff is a little too intense and hardcore for me to do. I wouldn't be good at it. And I don't even really want to do it. That's the main thing, is I don't really want to do it. And so what's the point? I should just remember that. Remember that for, like, the rest of my life. It's just, I don't really want to do the fucking thing. But don't let me, nobody's watching this, but I don't want to negatively impact some young person. And so, cause somebody's got to fucking have kids. Somebody's got to have kids. Somebody's got to go get a job. You do it. If somebody's watching this, you do it, young man. You go get the pussy. You go get the money. But I'm just going to keep messing around in my room like a retired person. Anyway, nobody's watching. All right, so L.